Senator Tillis.
Senator, Mr. Becerra, thank you for being here. I want to get some housekeeping out of the way. I'm going to resubmit some questions for the record in this hearing that I submitted back in November to Director Marcos, and I really would like to get a prompt response to these. I'm not going to go through them now. It has to do largely with the facility down in Greensboro that I don't think I'll have time to talk about today, but I am a bit concerned with the timeliness of it. But I've been in and out because I've tried to get it in the order here, but you can see how people come in and out. But this is beautiful. Nobody's behind me, so I may even be able to ask
I remember those
extra
days.
questions. But yeah, and actually, that's one thing I was going to mention. I've spoken with a number of people who serve with you, and they have great things to say about you. And I know some of the bipartisan work that you've worked on. But I do feel like there have been some partisan decisions that you're more or less responsible for implementing that I have a concern with. And I'm gonna point to drug pricing or price controls in the IRA as one of them. No question that we can look at that and say that we saved, I think that you mentioned $100 billion. Is that what you mentioned in response? That's true. But what have we lost? I know that shortly after the IRA was implemented, that there was at least one shareholder call or one call that was shared with us that has a double-digit drop in small molecule research because it's got to come from somewhere. And so I'd be interested if you could maybe submit for the record, unless you have detailed information now, data that would refute the fact that if you take down, I worked in research and development, not in pharmaceuticals, in high tech, margins got to come from somewhere, or the money's got to come from somewhere. And if you reduce the potential to get compensated for your product, then you just do, but you have less money to spend in R&D. It looks like there's a direct correlation to IRA's price controls and a big dip in small molecule research. If you have any information to refute that, I'd like to see it. We got to get smarter with how we try and drive down drug pricing, because you mentioned in response to someone else that we want to bring manufacturing back home. Well, if you squeeze the margins for a pharmaceutical manufacturer, and we have a lot in North Carolina, then you produce fewer resources to make the case to bring manufacturing home when we know we're in a more expensive jurisdiction. So all of these things are interrelated. You can't, on the one hand, whack this industry and say reduce lower prices and then try to get this industry, who has a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, to say, but you got to come manufacture home. Now, maybe we can get them out of China, but we are not creating a hospitable environment in the United States for them to make these business decisions if we continue to whack them, not to mention that the president, through TRIPS waivers, is even making it more chilling on the pharmaceutical industry in terms of absolutely having a intellectual property, being able to defend their intellectual property rights over a period of time to recover the cost of an investment they made in a drug. If we don't figure out a bipartisan way to deal with this, I will guarantee you we can have people thrilled about winning the battle, but we are going to lose the war. And when we talk about drug pricing, the last time I checked, a therapy or a drug that was never brought to market cost zero, but so do the human consequences. So I'm just going to give that a soapbox speech because, as you said to Senator Barrasso, there's a lot packed in there. We got to get the right way to do it. And this is a very dangerous game that we're playing of just making purely partisan progress on this issue, like arguably the IRA was. It wasn't a single Republican vote. I also wanted to cover one of the advantages of being this far down on the dais. You get to hear a lot of other people talk. It's another thing that I think we'll probably maybe meet with you separately. Number one, we have got to get telehealth permanently authorized, period. Anybody who's just asking for another extension doesn't know how the free market works. The free market works this way. I know that this is the new operating standard from the perspective of the federal government. And I also know that there are state impediments that we need to work on. I'm doing my part in North Carolina. But you're not going to stimulate investment and innovation in telehealth unless they know it's permanent. Businesses don't operate on 2-year horizons. And it has been stress tested. All of the naysayers about telehealth before COVID have been proven wrong. It works at scale. Its efficacy is indisputable. So we need to collectively work on the federal layer and then put pressure on the state layer. And I've told my colleagues, do not come to me in this state and tell me telehealth is good, except for a couple of professions or except across certain territories. It is irrational, and I reject it before you even walk in my door. But we need some leadership from the administration, I think, for you to get it done right. And I'll submit other questions for the record.
Time of
Thank
my
you.
colleague has expired. We're going to go right to Senator Cantwell here in a minute. But just coming back, I heard my friend, and we've done a lot of work together, talking about manufacturing and bringing it back from overseas if we have bipartisan approaches in terms of issues like R&D. I will tell you later, if I can catch you, I know of such an example. It got 357 votes in the House of Representatives. And kidding aside, I want to work with my colleague.